The infamous rent control bill in the state of Washington has now passed. It's in effect. That's HB 1217. That's what we're going to touch on here in the next few minutes of the key takeaways that you want to know if you're a Spokane landlord about that bill. HB 1217. My name is Doc. I'm with Cobalt Property Management, and the first thing you need to know about HB 1217 is that you cannot increase rents in the first 12 months of occupancy. So that's a big portion. Again, we talked about the rates of which you can increase rents by and the cap of what that is, but the lesser known portion of that bill is in the first 12 months of occupancy, you cannot increase rents on that tenant. And it doesn't matter how long your lease is in that first 12 months. Meaning, if you sign a 6-month lease with that tenant and then you go to renew that lease, you can't build in a rent increase because you're still in the first 12 months of occupancy. So keep that in mind. You cannot increase rents in the first 12 months of occupancy. Second, the rent control caps at you can increase rents every 12 months by 7% plus CPI no greater than 10% total. So that would look like 7% plus a 3% CPI for a 10% total increase. Now let's say CPI came in at 2%. What would that look like if you wanted to maximize how much you can increase rents by? Well, that would be an increase of 7% plus the 2% CPI for a total of 9%. So again, 10% your cap. You can't go an increase above 10%. You can increase 7%, but the other 3% is based off of that what CPI comes in at. So if CPI is under 3, you're going to be under that 10% threshold. If CPI is over 3, you're limited to that 10% threshold. Now, there's a few exemptions to this. Some of them are somewhat complicated. They have to do with public housing authority, nonprofits, things like that. But let's talk about you as a Spokane landlord. If you live and occupy one of the units and you have no more than 4 units, you are exempt from that rent control increase portion of HB 1217. If you have a single family home and you rent out 2 rooms or less, you are exempt from that portion of that bill. And if you have a property that had the certificate of occupancy within 12 years or less, then you are exempt from the bill as well. So those are the major exemptions of the bill. So they're very narrow in who's exempt from that rent control portion. So now let's talk about the how you provide notice of that rent, because that changed as well. So statewide, the notice was a 60-day notice of rent increase that must be given. That has been expanded to now 90 days. So again, we know that there's local jurisdictions that have their own regulations around that notice. But as far as the state's concerned, it's no longer a 60-day notice of increase. It's a 90-day notice of increase. So make sure you keep that in mind. And along with that, they have standardized the form in which you provide that notice. And that standardization is actually in the bill. And again, you will find the bill underneath this video as a link. You could read all 25 pages of it. But it does standardize what that bill must say in the what the notice must say. Now, what else we have in this bill is a parity of lease types that restrict the difference of rents you can charge. So within the bill, what it states is that if you charge a certain amount for a month-to-month lease, and maybe you charge a bit less for a longer-term 12-month lease, the difference between those charges can be no more than 5%. So for example, let's say you would charge $22.50 a month for a tenant on a month-to-month, but if they were to sign a year-long lease, maybe you'd do a $1,900 a month if they're willing to sign and commit to a 1-year lease. Well, that's outside of that 5% threshold, so that is no longer valid. You now have to stay within a 5% threshold. So if you charge $2,000 for a lease that's a 12-month lease, you can't charge more than, what would that be, $2,100 for a month-to-month. So the spread of which you can charge based on the lease type can't be any more than 5%. Now, as far as enforcement of this bill, the state attorney general has been named to be the enforcer if a landlord is not complying to these new regulations. So just keep that in mind. You don't want the state AG mad at you. So there is a link below to the PDF of the final bill. It's about 25 pages long. Feel free to read it. This is an overview of what is now in effect with HB 1217. My name is Doc with Cobalt Property Management. If we could help you with any questions or managing any properties in the Spokane and Coeur d'Alene area, feel free to reach out to us. Our contact information is below. You could reach us at rentcobalt.com or 509-795-1031.